Hey everybody, this is Bev Grey. Recently I made a little mini album about one of our favorite nearby parks, and I wanted to share with you some tips for making little mini albums like this one. I wanted my mini album to have each of the pages be the same size. So to do this, I got out some craft colored cardstock and I printed a bunch of 3x4-inch photos. I used the story card die to cut out a number of the craft pieces so that I'd have them available for the different elements. And then I also cut out those 3x4 photos so that they'd all be exactly the same size. Then I got out some of the other dies in the card die collection. On the cover I used a set called That Arrow die. And it's one that has a frame, and it can be sometimes difficult to get it out of its little die. So there are little holes around the frame that you can just use that stylus to poke the cardstock out and get it out of that die. Then I layered it onto my cover and did some stamping above it and added some bling. But I also want to show you how I use that negative space. There I just stamped some journaling lines on it and then stamped the date down into the cutout arrow. So when you're using these card dies, you can use both the negative and positive space on your project. On this little mini album, I wanted to really record the location we were in, so I decided to use a stamp set from the Fill in the Blank set. And the stamp is a scene with a space that you can fill in, and then the word location. And it was designed to let you write in by hand whatever place you were at. But I wanted to do it a little bit differently. And there wasn't really enough room on that stamp between the word scene and location for me to fit the words. So what I did is I took the stamp set out and I just cut it so that it would fit in the space that I wanted on the front of that album. So I cut it between the scene and location so that it would widen the space so that I'd have a bigger space to fill in. Once I cut it to be the size I want, I position it on my project just like you see here, and then use the block to pick it up so that then I could stamp it right where I needed it to be. So when you look at your stamps, realize that you can cut them to fit the space that you want them to be in. One of the things I really like to do on my projects is add the illusion of dimension without adding a lot of bulk. So let me show you how I did that with this Hello banner. When I got out my blue cardstock, I realized that the blue cardstock wasn't really going to show up that well when I layered it on top of the photo. It was okay, but it wasn't great. So what I did was I layered that blue and yellow cardstock and then put the die on top of it and cut out both pieces at the same time. Now once I die cut both pieces, I had both the blue piece and the yellow piece. And as you can see, they both pop out really easily. You might need to add a shim to your machine, but you can cut two pieces of cardstock on most machines is what I've found. Now as you can see, if you put the blue piece onto some of these photos that are in the shadows of the woods, they look okay, but they really don't pop. So instead what I did is I just took and layered the yellow underneath and just slightly offset it so that it provided that extra little bit of pop from the picture and really created the illusion that that banner was a bit thicker than it really is. I also used this on another page where I took the word that and layered it again with the yellow cardstock, just offset a little bit to have some more visual impact. Sometimes I want to do more than just add the illusion of dimension by layering cardstock. I want to really add dimension with a word like fun, or maybe with an arrow, like this frame arrow, or with the quote card die, like this what a fun day element. Let me show you how I do that. In this case, I die cut out the word fun, and as you can see, the lines are much smaller than these small dimensional adhesive squares. So what I do is while the dimensional adhesive square is still on its little carrier sheet, I just snip through it with my scissors. And I usually cut these small ones into strips of about 3. I find that they work well behind the words and behind frames too. Once I've got those little strips cut out, I flip the element over and just pick it up with the end of a piercing tool or a stylus like I'm using here. Then I position it where I want it to be and just use my finger to reposition it if needed and to get it where I really need it to be. Now I didn't do that well on the first one, so let me show you on a second piece where I just position it and then use my finger to press it down into the place where I really want it to be. Now in addition to doing them on things like words, I also want to show you what I do whenever I'm doing a frame. Here is the That Arrow frame and the quote frame. And in this case, I used the that arrow on a project later on. I stamped the words, I love this, and you need to stamp first. And then I added those little dimensional adhesive strips all around the edges. And behind the arrow, I used the bigger dimensional square so that it had more stability on my project. I really enjoyed making this little mini album and hope that some of the tips and techniques I gave here will help you on your next papercraft project. We share tips and techniques on our website, on our blog, and on our Facebook page regularly. I hope you'll become part of our online community.